Welcome to this session. It's great to have you here. My name is Mitchell Baker. I'm the co-founder of Mozilla from all those years ago when we began. And I'm very excited with the panel today to talk about the next 25 years at Mozilla. This is a significant milestone for us. When we started, it was hard to imagine a quarter century and the impact and the size of the community of people who've been attracted to Mozilla and participated in our mission. So I can't be more excited to celebrate with you today. One of the things that's been unique about Mozilla is our combination of technology, activism, and community engagement and leadership. And so here at MozFest is a perfect time to really dive into all of those things and what they're going to look like in the next 25 years. And so I'm very excited to have a panel of people who are leading Mozilla, who've come as the future to take our past and our history and our legacy and the things that have made us successful so far and to transform and move us into the next 25 years. There's lots of change, lots of new and exciting things, lots of challenges with the internet and online life, lots of things that we could be scared about. And one of the things that I found most enduring and rewarding and successful about Mozilla is the sense of working on these things together. Sometimes the things that are scary are pretty scary when you look at them. And so having a community of people around with different ideas and commitments is really important. And of course, digital life is rich and exciting and fun. So having that community of people to enjoy and think of what more could we always do has been a key part of both making us successful and I think of attracting and retaining people and the level of commitment and excitement and dedication that people bring to Mozilla. And so this exchange of ideas, of new things, of different perspectives is as important as ever, maybe more important as the internet is changing faster and faster all the time. We have new faces at Mozilla. You'll meet some of them today. You'll see some of us who've been around for a while, trying to lead the change, to keep the Mozilla DNA, but express it in new ways so that we're modern and fresh and young again. And so you'll get a sense of that as we dive into the panel today. I hope you enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it immensely. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Carys to kick us off.
Thank you, Mitchell, and thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Carys Afoko, and I am the Senior Director of Communications and External Affairs at the Mozilla Foundation. Today, we've got a wonderful panel together to talk about Mozilla. We turned 25 this year, and we wanted to have a discussion about what we're building towards in the next 25 years. So I've got a wonderful all-star panel with me today to lead that discussion. Joining me is Udom, the Senior Vice President of Innovation at the Mozilla Corporation. We've got Mohamed Nanabhay, who is a managing partner of Mozilla Ventures, a new part of the Mozilla family. Alotta, who's Vice President of Global Programs at the Mozilla Foundation. And Pelonomi, who's the co-founder and CEO of Lalapa.AI, a company that Mozilla Ventures has funded. I'm really excited to chat today. And one thing to say to everyone watching, we're going to be taking questions for you in real time. So if you're watching on the MozFest Plaza, YouTube, or LinkedIn, just use the chat function of whichever platform you're on and add your questions. You can also tweet us at Mozilla Festival with the hashtag dialogues and debates. So get your questions into the chat channels and I will start the panel. So we're here as part of Virtual MozFest, and an event that in true Mozilla fashion is co-created by the Mozilla community. MozFest started out as an in-person event, and during the pandemic, with so many other things, it moved online. So another thing that happened during the pandemic is that all of you started at Mozilla. See my segue there. So I'd love you to introduce yourselves and talk about when you joined the Mozilla community. And I'm going to hand it to Emo to start us off.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that, Carys. Again, my name's Udom. I'm Senior Vice President of Innovation Ecosystems at Mozilla. I joined Mozilla in late 2021. So I've been here a year and a half. It's been a very fun ride so far, and I'm excited about our future.
Bob, how long have you been with Mozilla?
Well, I actually realized in this conversation for the first time I'm an old timer, which is kind of amazing. But I started actually, in all fairness, 3 months before the pandemic. So I had 3 months of running around and meeting people around the world, and then came to a screeching halt like everyone else. And so I've been in disembodied head until very recently.
Mohamed?
Well, I mean, I guess my first touch of Mozilla is probably, I was just looking back to 2004, when Mozilla, I think for version 1 of the browser, there was this beautiful advert that went into the New York Times that was made up of everybody's names who were contributors, volunteers, and supporters of Mozilla. That was probably the first time my name was publicly associated with Mozilla. But stayed in touch with the broader movement and joined the Mozilla board probably about 5 years ago, where I was on the foundation board. And just last year, stepped off the foundation board to start up Mozilla Ventures. So multiple times of starting.
Competing with Bob for the oldest timer. Pelonomi, when did you join the Mozilla community?
Yeah, so I guess Lelapa.AI by association is like the cousin that arrives at the barbecue that you weren't sure you're related to. But we were recently enabled by Mozilla Ventures and Mohamed and his team a couple months ago. Hey, Mohamed, we officially launched like 3 weeks ago. So I guess that's the official public announcement of our association and our journey together. But yeah, very recent. New edition.
Congratulations, the most recent. Well, we're going to get into talking about Mozilla and all of the interesting things that you each work on. But I don't think we can start a dialogue and debate without talking about the current moment. And I wanted to ask you all about generative AI. I'm going to leave it pretty broad. I know you've all got lots of opinions and things to say. Emo, I'm going to kick to you, and then I know others on the panel want to talk about the current moment. And what are people talking about that they shouldn't be? Anything in particular that really interests you about the current moment? Emo?
Thank you. When it comes to this space, it's just really an exciting time. And we've seen a lot of innovation over the years in different waves. But what's unique about this generative AI wave is just the speed of innovation, right? Like the speed of innovation, if you're not paying attention to what's going on in the community, day to day, hour to hour, we're seeing new breakthroughs coming through. And that's something that I think we just haven't seen with a lot of innovation in the past. And we as a society, even as technologists, have to grapple with that. What does it look like when something comes out, you're starting to put together a team to think about how to respond to it, and a couple hours later, it's already been innovated on top of. There's something that I heard a quote at an event recently, and it just really stood out here. When you invent a new technology, you uncover a new set of responsibilities. And I think that's particularly apt for generative AI, right? It's a new invention from a technology perspective, coupling a lot of years of research and work together. But what we're seeing, because of the speed of innovation, there are a new set of responsibilities that we're all still trying to figure out. Tech companies, researchers, people who are thinking about responsible AI, we're all trying to put our minds together to understand what that looks like. So again, I think for me, I'm excited about the innovation side of it, and I want to see more product work done there. I think we need to lean more into how do you do this responsibly in a way that helps to augment humanity and versus create a detriment for people unknowingly. So that responsible side is going to be really critical as we move forward.
I know you only officially launched recently, but your company is in the AI space. What's your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the generative AI that has come into the news has given me this state of duality in terms of what I think about and what I'm passionate about. And I think it's a good place to be, because that's the beauty of life, that there's positives and negatives. And when Emo talks about the speed at which innovation has happened in this space, I also cannot help but think about the speed at which the rest of society is having to keep up with the types of changes that are happening in the technological world. So he's referred to the responsibility aspect, but I think we're also seeing significant change and thought provocations in areas of like, what does it mean that AI can do certain things. It's raising really interesting questions about what we consider to be intelligence and how do we interact with it. And those kinds of questions have been really interesting to come across. You know, legally, what are the types of policies and regulations that should be put in place to make sure that we're doing the right thing? So yeah, lots of questions and lots of really amazing possibilities for what the technology can bring to the world. But I think it points to how much work still needs to be done in order to make sure that we do things well and do them properly.
Bob, I'm interested in your perspective as someone who's been working in this space for several years and on the philanthropy side as well. What does the current moment mean to you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think well, first of all, I second everyone's perspectives thus far. And I kind of think of now as a reveal, right? A pulling away of a curtain of work that's been in development for a very long time, right? We know AI has been deployed for some time in public health and for public benefits in many different arenas. I think of this more as a moment like when, and the reason why the foundation has been focused on the potential for trustworthy AI, we've focused on mitigating bias, on increasing transparency, on really looking at the way data is monetized, and with a commitment, a very strong commitment to work with as many different people who are thinking about this as possible. I think it's because in moments like this, when the cool parts of AI are revealed, it makes it that much easier to obfuscate potential harms. It makes it that much easier to obfuscate intent or impact on people in their day-to-day lives. And so for me, I think I feel grateful that we have a groundswell of work that we've been doing for a number of years. So many different people who are looking at data sets, interrogating how AI is built, used, by whom, for whom. I think that now is, I think, a beautifully playful moment, but also one that could be a bit of a smokescreen on the potential, both good and harm of the work in the future.
That seems a very good analogy. And from your perspective, Mohamed, is every bid for funding across your table now got a ChatGPT component? What's it like from your perspective?
Yeah, well, it's certainly better than the last few years when everything was crypto or Bitcoin, because in a way this moment feels real. And but I guess going back to Bob's point that it feels like this has been coming and people have been building, and I guess since the 1950s, every computer science student went through this debate about AI and went through thinking about the promise and the opportunity. And finally, this decade, we sort of see it coming into being. And, the challenge we have is really how do we think about it critically and put in place all the protections we might need as society, and how do we think about what are the guardrails, what are the unintended consequences, but also taking advantage of the technology and not leaving it to others to develop. And I think that's why it's so exciting for us as we're doing investment as Mozilla Ventures. We're really looking for companies who are thinking about what does trustworthy AI mean? How do we further explainability? And with Lalapa.AI particularly, how do we center Africa into this, into all these novel developments? We know we have the talent. We know we need to start building products that serve people coming online, and we also know that there's a big gap in terms of data that's being generated. So I think it's an exciting moment for us. So not to throw caution out the wind, but I think it's really thinking broadly about this rather than just going gung ho, but being quite deliberate.
Thank you. I'm guessing there are going to be a lot of questions about generative AI. So this is a reminder, whether you're on LinkedIn, the MozFest Plaza, or you want to tweet at us. If you've got anything you'd like to know from the panel, please post your questions and we can circle back to this later. I guess the thing I'm interested in, given one of the themes of the panel today is Mozilla's present and future. And Mitchell spoke very eloquently about that at the start. I'm interested in what brought you to Mozilla. And I guess, what brought you to partner with Mozilla? And if you want to share a bit about what you were doing before you came here, but also why in the current moment you chose to be here, the rest of us. I'm gonna let you self-select who wants to answer that one first.
I'm happy to jump in. So my whole career had been as a filmmaker. And then just prior to Mozilla, I was running a philanthropy that funded LGBTQI activists and artists around the world. And that was really, and I had been really, my career in film had been also very much about film technologies and digital technologies. While I was doing work with human rights defenders, it became clear to me that these are the people who innovate, that the people with the greatest need have to have the greatest creativity, and that's where innovation really lies. And so I started to bring technologists and human rights defenders together and upend the notion of who the expert was. And when we did that, we saw that the technologists' lives were changed, their perspectives were changed, they learned so much, and we were able to solve real problems that people were facing on the ground that wouldn't otherwise have gotten solved if we hadn't brought folks together. And so when I was imagining what was next, I knew I wanted to continue to live and work globally, that I understood that technology was both a terrain where people lived and a set of tools for people to create their lives. And I wanted to continue to do that work. And working at Mozilla has been an incredible amalgam of all of those skill sets, both narrative building, bringing people together in places like MozFest, and actually seeding innovation around the world.
Emo, would you say you were a technologist before you came here?
Yes, I would say entrepreneur and technologist. I had the fortune to go through a startup experience, taking something from an idea stage to solving real people's problems. It was actually my core experience there was in the HR technology space, trying to help connect people and talent at scale. And for me, what really drew me to Mozilla was a very personal thing that my family and I were going through. So I'll share a little bit. My wife had recently transitioned from, she's in finance. She transitioned from working, on sort of financial institutions like hedge funds or private equity to actually working what she calls do-gooder finance, right? Trying to help people invest according to their values in the ESG SRI space. And I just saw the change in her when she was able to use her skill sets and align that with her profession in a way that really created impact. And I think I was looking for that. I'd done my startup. I'd gone to a bigger company that was a scaling HR tech business, and I was ready for a different model, right? What would it look like if growth wasn't number one, and then you're fighting for mission number two? What would it look like if mission was truly number one? And then you think about your people and your business. And Mozilla is that unique place where you're able to do that. So it's the intersection of really being able to build something great for people, and really putting sort of the mission and the people first, but still able to use that skills of being an entrepreneur and creating real products that change people's lives. So that's really what attracted me to Mozilla. And again, I've loved it so far.
Mohamed, you've been in the Mozillaverse for a while. What first attracted you to it, and what were you working on before you came to us full time?
Yeah. I think one of the things that was really attractive about Mozilla, when I first, heard about the project and got involved was really, I guess, what, Mitchell and the other founders and the community had done in those early years, which was really show that you could take on this behemoth in the industry. And it very much appealed to me, the idea, that the underdog or somebody, something that was community-based would be able to take on such a large corporate power, and, really just prove to the world and inspire people that, everybody can, if we work together, we can affect outcomes in very real and meaningful ways. And I think that, that's something that was always attractive about what Mozilla did. And I've been fortunate enough through my weird career to date where, I spent a lot of time at Al Jazeera, a news organization from 2004 on, really thinking about how do we give people a voice? How do we center stories of people, from where they are, rather than, narratives that are emerging from sort of centers of power, but rather how do we go to the ground and really tell the stories of people. And quite formative for me was being there during the time of the Arab Spring, and really sort of seeing the power of the internet, where there was a lot of hope. And it was really for me, if I look back, around 2011, 2012, this was the moment where we had the most optimism. We saw social change happening, intersecting with our social networks. And we thought this was how societies can transform. We can see democratic transformation. We can see young people try to mold the world that they want. And of course, not long after, we started seeing the negative effects of all of this, and how all this technology can be misused. And we've been living with that, for the decades since. So really, with those sorts of experiences, I've been really thinking about how do I keep on doing work that's aligned to values. And I've been fortunate enough going from there, and working at the Media Development Investment Fund, where we worked with independent media organizations around the world, doing very much the same thing that we did at Al Jazeera, except with smaller news organizations working in their own countries, to really ensure that they held power to account. So Mozilla, in a way, felt like a natural next step, working on similar types of problems, but with technology focus.
Awesome. And yeah, I think something that is really true of working at Mozilla is, and Mitchell touched on it again, is just, that excitement and love for the internet and the potential that it's got. And yeah, it's been a real honor working with you all and learning about the different perspectives you've brought. Pelonomi, you've got a slightly different path into the community. Do you want to tell folks about Lelapa.AI, what you're doing, and how things are going?
Yeah, sure. So Lelapa.AI is a product lab and research house. So we aim to drive products on the continent through a research lens and a research perspective. And our mission really is to create AI for Africans by Africans, approaching the view of technology from a majority world perspective in solving problems that we care about and that are of importance to us and that are overlooked by the rest of the world. And it's really been quite an amazing journey, because our relationship starting with Mozilla, of course, we were looking for enablers and funders to help us on this journey. And it's not like we had many options. Lalapa is very much mission-based. We are very much about people, making sure that we're developing responsibly, that we're working on those types of problems that aren't necessarily always profit-driven. And so finding people to partnership or organizations to partner with was a tricky process. But I really love what Bob was saying earlier around how people in need are often the innovators that come up with the best ideas, because that's truly what we believe that Lelapa.AI has been founded to do, that there's this great need on the continent, and it just means we have to be super creative and super resourceful in how we solve those problems. And yeah, when Imo was talking earlier about Mozilla being a place of believing in the mission and the people, it again was super aligned with Lelapa.AI and what we're trying to achieve. So yeah, in the right place and part of the right family, and it feels really good.
Wonderful. It's funny joining an organization like Mozilla, because it's got such a proud history, and we've got folks maybe watching today and on the staff team who've been at Mozilla for 25 years, people like Mitchell who've been there at the start, and you join and it's an organization with a really proud history of developing open source products like Firefox, and also advocating on issues focused on consumer privacy. But I guess what I want to talk to you all today is what you think will define that next chapter. And I'm going to send it to you, Bob. Among other things, you lead our philanthropic work. Like, what are the next 25 years for Mozilla?
25 years feels like a really long time. And I would say that—
You can do less.
Yeah, okay. I mean, one thing that I think is really important to understand why it's so critical that we actually have a foundation is that we actually get to take the risks that market often wouldn't allow. And so we get to invest in the people, the projects, the organizations, the ideas that maybe can reveal the pieces and the prototypes or the aspects of bodies of work that actually get us truly closer to a humane digital world. And I think that that's something to realize, that we get to actually work alongside of, to convene with, to fund our potential in a way that the market doesn't necessarily bear. But people are ready and willing. People know what they want and need, and know what they don't want and need. And I think that has the power, whether it's through advocacy or funding civil society, or organizing alongside of activists and artists and scholars and policymakers, and a body of thinkers who are willing to come together across so many different geographies and subject positions to bring a collective vision to life. And I think that actually could help sway market to actually meet the actual needs of people. I think without question, I run something called global programs for a reason. And I think this idea that our greatest ideas and our only ideas, or the invention that we need, comes from a singular geography, is so false. And so I think really being able to work in the global majority, uplift the work that's coming out of a myriad other places rather than a small North American niche, is critically important. And so I think that's also something that, without question, in 25 years from now, I think some of the nomenclature that we use in order to push the envelope should and well be common. And so when we talk about things like Common Voice, which is the largest data set of non-English languages, that should be actually the status quo, that we're open, that we actually needn't be a single few, and that we're actually looking at the needs and the invention of the people.
And Pelonomi, I think you've got some connection points to Common Voice as well. Is that something Lalapa is working on?
Yeah, I mean, my co-founding team has been building this network of really incredible talent across the continent for, the past 10 years, with the labs that they're involved in, with the Deep Learning Indaba, which is the biggest machine learning conference on the continent, and more recently through the Masakane initiative, which is a collection of over 1,000 researchers across the African continent, giving of their time and effort to ensure that our culture and our heritage is preserved, while putting ourselves on the map in terms of machine understanding of natural language, of the languages that are low resource on the continent. So yeah, Mozilla Common Voice has often been a very valuable resource to us in terms of finding the data in order to be able to train those models. Of course, we know in the Western world that there's plenty of resources, which includes data and compute and power, and that means that you can generate these really huge models that can do super impressive things, like the generative AI that we were talking about earlier. But as Mo has mentioned, on the African continent, we're a place of oral history. Our oral tradition is how we've passed on our language and our learnings, and so without very little physical record of the languages, it's been quite difficult to get machines to learn about them and therefore share it with the rest of the world. So our first product is a product called Vulavula, and that is aiming to connect through a business-to-business type mechanism, customers to clients, so that they're able to engage in their languages, and so that they're able to speak their own languages in a way that doesn't prevent them from accessing services, whether it be basic services or ones that are just for entertainment purposes.
And Imo, you've got innovation in your job title, so I'm guessing you're thinking about the future a lot of the time. What are the things that are in store for us?
Absolutely. I think at the highest level, more products. So if you think about Mozilla, a lot of people know us through our Firefox product, our browser, which obviously was the genesis of Mozilla. But we actually have more products in market beyond Firefox today. A lot of them, we have bringing great talent that are augmenting, improving these products. Things like Pocket, which is in the content curation space. We have a suite of products focused on consumer privacy and security, anchored by a VPN today. But besides those, one of the things we're really thinking about is how do we make sure that our mission is being represented through products that are built based on the core principles or our Mozilla manifesto, because these are really critical, right? I think what oftentimes happens and what we hear in the market is, yes, I care about my privacy, I care about my agency, I care about how companies are treating me, but I love this product, right? This product does what I need it to do for me. So at Mozilla, we're really on that mission to create new products that are able to solve those great user problems, but are steeped in the values and principles that we believe are critical for a healthy and open internet. So products, you'll see new things coming out from Mozilla from that perspective. I think something else that you'll start seeing more from us is us leaning into some of these future tech areas. So it doesn't always have to look like us building product ourselves. Sometimes we can use, as J. Bob mentioned, historically, we've been great at using our advocacy, our policy chops, leaning into a broader viewpoint on some of where future tech should go. From a product perspective as well, though, we can collaborate with entrepreneurs, with innovators and inventors who are working on those things and just add that Mozilla perspective to their work. So you'll see more of that. And holistically, the big thing that we're trying to push over is this mindset of ecosystem innovation or ecosystem impact. Right. So if every organization took a broader ecosystem perspective, we can understand that there's more to gain through certain levels of collaboration than through a walled garden approach to our products and services. So again, you'll see programs, you'll see initiatives, you'll see products that help to create this future. And that's really what I'm excited about for us moving forward.
Excitement on the panel there. And that ecosystem community approach really shows up in all of your work. I wonder, Mohamed, if you want to talk a bit about it from a funding perspective and what it means to build the Mozilla universe to include a venture capital fund.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, if we look back at 25 years, Mozilla has always been great with working with others, right? We've been an open source project, we've been a community project, we've got all of these great people around Mozilla and as part of Mozilla. And looking forward, one of the things that we want to do with Mozilla Ventures is find founders and entrepreneurs who are building and people who really share our values as Mozilla. And not 100%, like we're not looking for people to say they're exactly like what we do, but people who are advancing specific areas of the manifesto, who are thinking deeply about what it means to build responsible technology, who are thinking about bits and pieces that we find important in our manifesto. And one of the great jobs, that I have as an investor is I don't need to have the answers, right? Like I'm not here saying we have the solutions, because really the people who have the solutions are these founders and engineers and people out there in our world. So maybe the job's a bit harder, not having the solutions, but going out and finding these people and being able to enable them, to fund them, and to be able to do the work that they're doing in building the type of future that we want. And our ambition is, we flourish, the world flourishes with Mozilla-like organizations, people who are committed to thinking about building technology in a responsible way, making the right trade-offs between privacy and product and so on, and not just chasing profit for the sake of profit. So I think, and I think there's a growing movement of people who are in the tech industry who care about this and who are thinking deeply about these problems that we face as society. And we're really looking for them and people who are, have this product-led approach. And we want to fund them and we want to invest in them and help them grow and let them thrive.
That's great. And it actually connects a bit. We're talking about ecosystems and the power of our community and our networks. And we've had a question about other technology companies. So someone has asked, where do we want to see Google, Meta, some of the bigger technology firms in the next 25 years? Who wants to take that one?
I mean, I'm happy to take it, considering I'm probably in the most appropriate position. And these kinds of questions for me are kind of difficult to answer. Maybe it's because my brain is too small, but When I look at a lot of these technologies, I'm very wary of applying too much of my energy to those kinds of spaces, because although they're super innovative in the type of worlds that they're imagining, those imaginations are particularly useful to like the everyday problems that are happening on the ground. And I guess that's maybe linked to what I hope will come out of these types of technologies in the future, in terms of addressing real day needs, whether in the health sector, helping doctors and medical professionals do their jobs better, or helping lawyers do their jobs better, rather than being entertainment tools that kind of often introduce more problems than they do solve. I hope we'll get to a point where AI and technology is a representation of the best parts of our community, of our ecosystem, and our humanism in ways that help each other live better lives. Yeah.
Everyone's on mute. So, Emo,
I'm happy. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Bob, you have it. You're ready.
I have a bit of a cheeky answer that wherever those companies or any other companies are, that they're actually operating with shared values, because we've pushed the envelope to make sure that that's happened. I think to your point is, if we keep our eyes on the prize and are very clear and do our jobs as well as we can, and support the people and the movements who know how to do that and how to build and support the technology to actually be built to greater purpose, I think then we should be able to see those companies and any others who are around 25 years from now actually operating in service of that vision.
I'll add one thing very much along those lines. I'd love to see those companies and more companies in general thinking about a fairer value exchange, right? So I think, yes, it's perfectly okay that they build products and they're growing their business and they have to grow revenue and all that good stuff. You have to run a business. But I think there are opportunities for fairer value exchanges in the different ways they interact with the ecosystem. That can look like what they're asking for users versus what they're giving users, and making that clearer, the give and get there. It can also look like going back to sort of the open source community, right? Sometimes these larger tech companies are building off open source projects, things that have been done in the commons or in the open. And again, the value exchange between the profits they get from this work and maybe what they contribute back to those projects is very skewed. So again, I'd love to see a different model, or at least systematic approach to think about fairer value exchange from product perspective, from an audience perspective, and definitely from an open source perspective as well.
Thanks for that question. And one thing that isn't probably apparent to people watching at home is it's actually really rare that we get to come together as a group. Everyone is heads down. So this Zoom room feels quite special. And I guess I wanted to ask you all, is there anything you want to ask each other? Like, have you got any questions for one another about what we're working on, what's coming up next?
I actually have a little bit of a question for Pelonomi. So we've talked about global a lot, and my family, I'm originally from Nigeria, so I think about the continent too. But I think the question that comes to mind is, how can tech companies, or especially ones that are very much Western-minded, have a more authentic and important approach to supporting communities like people on the continent of Africa? Like, what do you think we could do a bit differently that we're not doing today?
Yeah, I think that the important word there is the word supporting, right? Myself and my co-founders have been approached by a number of super successful big tech companies in situations where they want to relocate their services onto the continent within our context, but still hold on to all of the IP, all of the ownership type connections of what that then means. They're surprised when they fail, but it's also really unfortunate that they do fail, because if we had more of the supporting type infrastructure, where instead of you saying, how can we come into your context and do what we do everywhere else, rather than being like, who is there already and how can we support them to do it in a way that we can collaborate on and partner with, so that we can achieve this thing together. I think there is this, I don't know, this Western heritage of like domination and this like capitalist narrative of competition. And I don't think it works all over the world. And I think it's time for that mindset to change, and for us to work in more of a mutually beneficial manner, and have some symbiotic relationships that reflect that. Yeah.
Well said.
We've got a flurry of questions, and I know that we haven't got very long left. So we had a question about the climate crisis, and also related crises in the world, and like how that impacts on people's thinking. I'm going to go to you, Bob.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've started to do really well is to know what we don't know. And so in the last year and a half, 2 years, we've made a series of climate commitments, but one of those biggest commitments are to learn. And so we really invested in an experiment with being led by Michelle Thorne, who was one of the founders of MozFest, and with a number of other entities, philanthropies, and to see what we could collaboratively come up with. And so we've been really investigating that. There's a lot of research we've done. There's program recommendations. There's a series of deep learning that's happened over the last year and a half. And now we're really at a point of taking a look at that, seeing how we can be impactful and make plans. So we have really a commitment to listen and learn and to act as quickly and as responsibly as we can. So we're investing in a myriad of different bodies of work, whether it's one of our fellows is working in Brazil, really looking at indigenous communities who are trying to maintain the Amazon, right? Like to really looking at, right? So we have individual projects that we have been funding and supporting for some time, but we're clear we need to make a bigger commitment. And so we're in a state of deep learning to try to plan in a way that makes sense, and so that we can sustain that work and that it's not just a drop in the bucket. So that's kind of where we are, honestly, and it's a pretty profound process, and I think it kind of shows the temerity of the people inside of Mozilla who've advocated for us to do that work, and yeah, so that's really where we are. We've just begun to kind of open the book on what we've learned and are continuing to learn.
There's so much more I want to discuss with you, and I know that we're coming close to the end of our time together. So I'm going to ask Emo to tell folks about what he announced last week in South by Southwest, and then I'm going to go to all of you for some final thoughts and calls to action for the audience.
Great. So maybe I'll combine my two things here. We're really excited about a new announcement and initiative that we're doing called the Mozilla Builders Responsible AI Challenge. So we announced this last week. Our goal is to bring together people who are building, using these great new technologies like generative AI, other machine learning algorithms, but combine them with people who are thinking about society's impact, or the impact of this technology on society, the ethics behind it, the safety of AI. And so we bring these people together in what we're calling the Responsible AI Challenge. To learn a little bit more about that, you can actually go to future.mozilla.org/builders-challenge. So it's the Mozilla Builders Responsible AI Challenge. The competition is going to open up at the end of this month, and the actual event is going to be in late May. So excited to hear more from people in the community participating in this wonderful event.
Thanks, Emo. Mohamed, what would you like to share with everyone?
Yeah, so I'd love to hear from founders out there who are and hear about what products they're building, and products that are sort of values aligned with us. anybody can reach out to hello@mozilla.vc, and we'd love to just hear from you and see what you're building, and see if we can be helpful.
Pelonomi, how can people get more involved with Lalapa?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely looking for business clients, especially in the small to medium type space where we can move quickly and do some really impactful work. You can find us at Lelapa.AI, a website, and from there you can be rerouted to any of our communication channels. And yeah, we can work together to turn what people find scary into possibilities and opportunities for positive change.
Wonderful. Bob, what would you like to share with everyone?
Well, most immediately, I'd like you to send everyone you've ever met to MozFest for the rest of the week and to join us. And then in the long term, we're a global public foundation, which means that we're only meant to do our work alongside of others, whether that's funders, activists, scholars, organizations. And so we want to work with you. So please be in touch with us and join a movement for a healthy internet.
That's wonderful. So many opportunities for everyone watching to get involved with Mozilla and be part of the community, or be even more part of the community. And one final thing is that we have another AI announcement tomorrow. I can't share what it is, but please be glued to our social media channels, and there will be a session about it at MozFest. So make sure that you tune in. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been such a pleasure being in the same Zoom room as you all today. And thank you everyone for your questions. Sorry we didn't get time to all of them. Yeah, have a great day, everyone. Morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are.